Hello, my name's Tony and welcome back to Fragdicted. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about a Middle Eastern fragrance, and this is called Oud Satin. And this is by Paris Corner. Stay right where you are. So firstly, I'd like to say a massive thank you to a lovely company called Aroma Concepts. They reached out to me by email and asked if they could send me a couple of samples, and in the post arrived 3 different fragrances, and they were the full bottles. Those fragrances were the one I'm reviewing today, another one Ministry of Oud, and it's called Greatest. I wonder what that's an interpretation of. And lastly, this is from Kadlaj and it's called Shiaka. So I will be reviewing them at another time. So today we're going to be concentrating on Oud Satin. It's part of a collection called Ministry of Oud. I'll leave Aroma Concepts website below. They're based in Leicester. Got very quick delivery. They've also got some presence on Amazon and on eBay. They have a massive range of Middle Eastern fragrances. So get yourself on the website and check out what they do. There is loads and they're so well priced. Now this is on their website and I believe this is $34.99. It's an extrait de parfum and it's a 100ml bottle. This is an interpretation of MFK's Oud Satin Mood, if you haven't guessed that already. Just look at the colour of the juice. Now that is fairly close to the original. I've got a good sized decant of the original just there, look. Oud Satin Mood. So I have compared these side by side and I'm about to give you my thoughts. Let me firstly run through the notes while I'll show you the bottle. So in the top it's got agarwood and Bulgarian rose. In the mid it's got benzoin and Turkish rose, and in the base we have violet and vanilla. Now this has a really strong opening. It's an opening of strong rose mixed with violet and mixed with some sweeter notes. You don't really pick up any oud in this one. For me personally, that's perfect. It is strong in the opening, so it really projects incredibly well. It fills a room. You'll only need a couple of sprays of this and you're good to go. The sweetness that you get from it comes from the benzoin and the vanilla, and the benzoin mixes really well with the rose to give it sort of an almost resinous quality. The violet also plays a major part in this fragrance. I know the cola juice may put this picture into my mind, but I do see it as a purple fragrance. I think that's the violet working its magic. So although it is strong and powerful, it also manages to remain soft and delicate at the same time. And that's because it goes very powdery, very quickly. Now, I love powdery fragrances. And let me tell you, this is probably, well, no, it is. It's not, there's no probably about it. This is the most powdery fragrance I think I've ever tried. So if you are really into powdery fragrances, give this a go. Now the parcel arrived while I was at work and my wife opened the parcel and she opened all 3 fragrances, and this is the one that she tried first. Let me give you her feedback. She described it as a cuddle fragrance. She described it as being very comforting, and she also described it as something that she would like to smell all of the time. She said not necessarily on me. For me personally, she prefers something a little bit more manly, maybe some spices or something in there, but she really liked the fragrance on her, and I think the reason she found it so comforting and something that she really liked is because she associated it with Johnson's baby talc, and the talcum powder is probably more the lavender than the normal, so something that she would put on my daughter after she'd had a bath. And she's done that from a baby, so that's probably why she finds it so comforting. So I think it's quite fair to say that she likes this fragrance. Don't think I'm going to see it very often. I think it's going to be stashed in her collection. What do I think of it? I really like it as well. I think it's quite intoxicating. It could be a little too much for some people, but it's quite soft, so I think it would appeal to a wide range of people, young and old. Overall, on the composition of both, I think they are a rose heavy fragrance with lots of violet. They're powdery. They have this familiar sugar candied note in. And that sugar candy note is almost like you'd find in Baccarat Rouge 540, another fragrance from MFK. Sort of a sugary, bubblegummy sort of type note. I would describe it as like a Turkish delight covered in the white powder that comes in the boxes, and that powder stays. How close are they? I would say they're probably 85 to 90% close. Now, as an overall DNA, they're very, very similar, and in the deep dry down, they are very, very similar. At that stage, it'll be very difficult to tell them apart. But in the opening to the mid and then into this sort of early dry down, there are some differences. This one does seem a bit smoother, a bit well blended, as you'd expect from a fragrance that costs over £200. This just costs £35, which I find staggering with how close they are. But the negative to the original is that it's just a little bit too rose oud generic. It's got a slight more oudy note in than this one's got. So you can detect it just slightly in this, and in this you can hardly detect it at all. And that puts this into the territory of a lot of other rose oud fragrances. Don't get me wrong, it's not similar to anything. This is very, very unique in its own right. But this hasn't got that oud note. Another point I'd like to make is this is much, much softer in the opening than this one. Now, although it still projects like a beast and fills a room, and you don't need many sprays of it, it doesn't feel as sickly sweet as this. They tone that sweetness down slightly. If they're using ether maltol on this fragrance, if they're also using it in this, it is much more toned down. So this is softer as an overall composition, and I think it also goes more powdery. Although I say they're 85% close, the overall DNAs are very, very similar. I'm gonna go as far to say as I prefer this, especially for the value for money you get. I do. I think I prefer this. I'm not saying it's better, but I prefer it. X also prefers it. She hates oud, and she does pick a bit of that up in this, the same as I do. She doesn't pick it up in this, so it makes it a different fragrance in the opening. But like I said, if you like the DNA of the original and you want something that maybe isn't so strong, a little softer, something that you don't mind using up as well, then this may be a great alternative to you using all of your expensive juice up. So massive well done to Paris Corner for what is quite a well-crafted fragrance. I am really intrigued as to what the others smell like. I've got another one of the Ministry of Oud called Greatest, which is their interpretation of Oud for Greatness, which I'll be comparing next, because again, I've got a decant of the original. So look out for that video. Have you tried anything from Paris Corner? What would you recommend? Because this is a rabbit hole and I have fallen down that rabbit hole. In this video, I'd like to also shout out Barry from Sensualize, who does a lot of Middle Eastern frag hauls, which I love watching. I love seeing the uncertainty of what's in those boxes and what the bottles look like. And then he seems to really think that a lot of them are great value for money. So I think I'm going to slip into that rabbit hole as well. I hope you've enjoyed my review of Ministry of Oud's Oud Satin by Paris Corner. Thanks again to Aroma Concepts. All the details will be linked below. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And I'll look forward to seeing you again in the next one. Don't forget to keep smelling wonderful.